Welcome to The Debate. So today we are dissecting a morning ritual that sits right at this very interesting intersection of ancient wisdom and modern algorithmic virality. If you've been on social media lately, you have likely seen the trend. Influencers holding these ceramic mugs, claiming that drinking hot water right when you wake up is the secret to, clear skin, organ detoxification, and rapid weight loss.
The TikTok cure-all.
Exactly. But this isn't just a TikTok fad. It is a practice that's explicitly prescribed in Ayurvedic medicine as ushapama.
And it's a fascinating collision of eras, isn't it? You have texts from, 3,000 years ago meeting the 15-second attention span of the internet. But despite the longevity of the practice, the scientific community remains pretty skeptical about the thermal claims. I mean, we know hydration is non-negotiable, that's biology 101. But the central question we're tackling today is, I think, much more granular. Is the temperature of the water you drink in the morning actually a medically significant variable? Or are we just adding a layer of, let's call it, thermal theater to simple hydration?
I am here to argue that temperature is, in fact, a critical variable. Treating water simply as H2O ignores the physiological impact of heat on the body's systems. Warm water is a distinct therapeutic intervention. It's a vasodilator that supports motility, respiratory health, and the circadian rhythm in ways that cold water simply cannot. It is a gentler, more aligned wake-up call for our internal biology.
And I am here to argue that while warm water offers, subjective comfort, the medical claims specifically around detoxification and metabolic acceleration are largely placebo or, frankly, misunderstood physiology. The body's a thermoregulatory machine. It internalizes temperature very efficiently. The evidence suggests that hydration is the only metric that really matters. And if we're talking strictly about metabolic data, the science it actually leans toward cold water, not warm.
Okay, so let's begin with the physiological baseline. I want to frame this beyond just drinking. When you wake up, you are in a fasted, dehydrated state. The Ayurvedic perspective validates this idea that the body's internal fire, or agni, is low, and blasting the stomach with ice water is considered a shock to the system. But even if you look at it through a Western medical lens, warm water acts as a vasodilator. It relaxes and expands the blood vessels. This improves peripheral circulation and reduces the cardiac workload required to bring that fluid up to body temperature. You're essentially matching the solvent to the environment it's entering.
I understand the matching logic. I do. But we have to be really careful with a word like shock. The human body is incredibly resilient. The stomach is not, a glass beaker that's going to shatter with a temperature change. From a rigorous physiological perspective, the body neutralizes the temperature of ingested fluid within minutes. Whether you drink water at 40 degrees Celsius or 4 degrees, it enters the bloodstream at roughly 37 degrees. My concern is that by over-indexing on the gentleness of warm water, we ignore the efficiency of the kidneys and the liver. They are the filtration system. They need water molecules to function. They really don't care about the kinetic energy of those molecules by the time they reach the renal filtration units.
But the transit matters. You're focusing on the destination, the blood, but you're ignoring the journey through the gastrointestinal tract. And this brings us to the traditional wisdom of ushapana, or drinking water before sunrise. It isn't just about hydration. It is prescribed to cleanse the bowels and balance the doshas, specifically vata, which governs movement. And we actually have modern clinical data that mirrors this ancient view, particularly regarding the esophagus. Warm water is a legitimate therapeutic tool for motility. It's heat therapy for the smooth muscle of the gut.
Okay, I am glad you brought up motility, because this is where the digestive folklore usually starts. But before we get to the folklore, let's look at the hard data. You are likely referring to the studies on esophageal clearance.
I am. There's a pivotal study. It's published in the Journal of Neurogastroenterology and Motility that is often overlooked. Researchers examined patients with achalasia, which is a condition with a lower esophageal sphincter fails to relax, making it difficult to pass food into the stomach. The study was definitive. Hot water swallows significantly improved symptoms, reduced the amplitude of contractions, and accelerated the clearance of the esophagus. Conversely, Cold water induced spasms and actually worsened the obstruction.
That is a high-quality study, and I don't dispute the findings for that specific cohort. But we have to contextualize this. Achalasia is a pathological disorder involving nerve damage. It is a specific failure of the swallowing mechanism. Extrapolating those results to a general healthy population is a pretty significant leap. If a listener has a healthy esophagus and a functioning sphincter, that relaxation effect you're praising might be completely negligible. In fact, you could argue that you don't want total relaxation. You want efficient peristalsis to move things along.
But the mechanism is established regardless of the pathology. The study proves that temperature directly influences the tension of GI tract muscles. Heat relaxes, cold contracts. If it relaxes a pathological esophagus, it stands to reason it provides a soothing, antispasmodic effect on a healthy gut. Think about how we treat external cramps. We use heating pads. Why is it so controversial to suggest that internal heat therapy relaxes internal cramping or, morning stiffness in the bowel?
It's not controversial. It's just unproven as a necessity for healthy digestion. In fact, if we look at the Cleveland Clinic's analysis of this, they describe it as a chicken and egg scenario. People drink warm water, they have a bowel movement. Okay, is it the heat relaxing the colon, or is it simply the gastrocolic reflex, that physiological trigger that tells the colon to empty whenever any significant volume of food or liquid enters the stomach? Dehydration is a primary cause of constipation. If you drink a liter of ice water, you are still triggering that reflex.
I would argue the quality of that reflex changes. Cold water acts as a shock. Yes, it might stimulate the vagus nerve, the main nerve of your parasympathetic nervous system, but cold water has been shown to slow gastric emptying rates in some contexts because the body holds the liquid in the stomach longer to warm it up. Warm water passes through the pyloric sphincter more readily. If the goal is a morning flush to wake up digestion, why would you put a roadblock of ice in the way?
Roadblock is a pretty strong word for, a few minutes of thermal adjustment? But I will concede that if someone suffers from a spasmodic gut or IBS, the antispasmodic nature of warm water probably has some utility. However, for the average person, the shock of cold water might actually be the better wake-up call. It increases heart rate slightly, boosts alertness. It really comes down to whether your system needs soothing or stimulating. But to say warm water is universally better for digestion just ignores that cold water is also highly effective for the primary goal, hydration.
I think we can agree hydration is the mechanism, but the delivery system matters. Let's pivot to a more contentious topic, one where the internet rhetoric really decouples from reality: weight loss and metabolism. This is where we see claims that hot water melts fat like grease in a frying pan.
Which I just have to state for the record is physiological nonsense.
I am not arguing that it melts fat cells on contact. That is a gross oversimplification. I am, however, defending the role of warm water in satiety and digestion management. There is relevant data from Virginia Tech showing that older adults who drank 500 milliliters of water 30 minutes before a meal reduced their calorie intake by approximately 13%.
That's a study on water. Purely volume. It didn't isolate temperature as the variable.
True, but this is where the sensory experience impacts the biology. Warm fluids, soups, tea, warm water are consumed more slowly. They provide a higher sense of satiety and fullness than, gulping ice water. In Ayurveda, they talk about preserving the digestive fire. Dousing that fire with cold water is believed to slow down enzymatic processes. So while the melting analogy is flawed, the idea that warm water supports the enzymatic environment for lipid metabolism, that's sound. Enzymes function optimally at core body temperature, not at refrigerator temperature.
Enzymes function at body temperature? Yes. But unless you're hypothermic, your core temperature is stable. The body is just too good at homeostasis. But I want to attack the metabolic boost argument with the actual physics. If we are looking for a metabolic spike for burning calories, the science is actually on the side of cold water.
Because of the energy expenditure required to heat it?
Exactly. It's basic thermodynamics.
I'm looking at a study from the medical faculty of Humboldt University in Berlin. They found that drinking 500 milliliters of water increased the metabolic rate by 30% for about an hour. But, and this is key, they specifically noted that cool water triggered higher energy expenditure. If you ingest fluid at 4 degrees Celsius, your body has to expend energy, burn calories, to heat it to 37 degrees Celsius. Drinking warm water bypasses that energy expenditure. So, strictly speaking, drinking warm water is metabolically less efficient than drinking cold water if weight loss is the goal.
I see the thermodynamic argument, but let's contextualize the magnitude. The amount of calories burned heating a glass of water is negligible. We're talking about maybe 8 to 15 calories. It's not a weight loss strategy, it's a rounding error. I argue that the efficiency of the system is more valuable than the calorie burn. By drinking warm water, you aren't diverting energy to thermoregulation. You are saving that energy for the actual digestion and absorption of nutrients. You are working with the body, not giving it a chore to do before breakfast.
That's a philosophical distinction, working with the body versus challenging the body. I suppose it depends on whether you view the body as a delicate flower or an adaptive machine. But I do agree that the melting fat myth is dangerous because it implies a passive mechanism. It suggests you can eat poorly, drink hot water, and the fat will just wash away. The liver handles fat metabolism. It needs H2O. It does not care if that H2O was warm when it entered your mouth.
I'm not entirely convinced by that because it creates a false binary. It's not about passive melting. It's about facilitating the process. But let's look at an area where the temperature benefit is, I think, undeniable, even to a skeptic like you. Respiratory relief and ENT health.
I am listening. This seems like firmer ground for the pro-heat camp.
If you have a cold, sinus congestion, or a sore throat, warm water is objectively superior, period. It's not just about hydration thinning the mucus, it's about the mechanics of the cilia, those tiny hair-like structures in your nose and throat that move mucus. We know that cold air and cold fluids can slow down ciliary beat frequency. Warmth maintains that movement. Plus, the steam itself rises into the nasal passages to loosen mucus. There's a 2017 study that showed consuming warm beverages effectively reduces shivering and provides immediate subjective relief for running noses and sore throats.
Okay, I will concede this point, but with a significant caveat. This is symptom management, not a cure. The warm water soothes the throat because it creates a temporary analgesic effect, and the steam helps mechanically, but it's not fighting the viral load.
But relief is a medical benefit. If you are waking up with the morning crud, that stuffiness or throat irritation from sleeping with your mouth open, warm water resolves that instantly. Cold water just exacerbates it. It is about functionality. If you can breathe better, you oxygenate better, and that is a tangible physiological win to start your day.
Fair point. If you are congested, drink something warm. That's just common sense. But let's talk about the risks. Because while you frame this as a gentle embrace, there are actual dangers associated with this hot water trend that are rarely discussed in wellness circles. The Ayurvedic texts are specific, but modern interpretations can be extreme.
You are referring to thermal injury.
I am. The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer has flagged beverages consumed above 65 degrees Celsius, that's 149 degrees Fahrenheit, as a probable carcinogen for esophageal cancer. We are seeing people who think hotter is better for detoxification, literally scalding their cellular lining every single morning. Chronic thermal injury causes inflammation, which is a precursor to cellular mutation.
I completely agree, and this is a failure of translation. The Ayurvedic recommendation for Ushapana is not boiling water, it is warm water, often described as body temperature or slightly above. Even in that Akshalasia study I mentioned, the hot water was around 50 degrees Celsius, well below the danger zone. The goal is not to burn, it's to harmonize.
But let's look at the volume too. You mentioned Ushapana. What are the specific volume requirements in the text? Because that carries its own risk profile.
The classical text suggests drinking 8 prasriti. A prasriti is the amount of water held in the hollow of one's cupped hand. In modern measurements, that translates roughly to 640 milliliters, or about 3 cups.
The prescription is to drink this specifically in the Brahmi Muhurta, the period about an hour and a half before sunrise.
640 milliliters is a significant amount of water to consume all at once. It's effectively a bolus dose. For most people, that's fine. But we have to be realistic about kidney function. The kidneys can maximally filter about 0.8 to 1 liter of fluid per hour. Slamming a huge volume of water under the guise of a morning flush pushes the kidneys right to their rate-limiting capacity. If someone is electrolyte deficient or has underlying kidney issues, this rapid dilution of the blood can be problematic.
That is why the practice often involves sipping or drinking gradually over a few minutes, not chugging. But the volume is intentional. It creates a siphon effect. It induces the urge to evacuate the bowels. It's a mechanical cleansing of the GI tract. And frankly, considering most people wake up having lost water through respiration and sweat all night, 640 milliliters is a corrective dose. It brings you back to baseline.
It is a corrective dose, I agree. But the rigid rules must be before sunrise, must be exactly this warm. They create barriers. The best hydration strategy is the one people stick to. If someone hates warm water and forcing it makes them drink less, they are losing the health battle. They are dehydrated but pure. That's a net loss.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it assumes people can't adapt to new, healthier tastes. We learn to drink coffee, which is bitter and hot. We can learn to drink warm water. And there is a dental argument here, too, that you're overlooking. Many people try to make water palatable by adding lemon, but lemon acid acts on the enamel. It softens it. If you brush your teeth immediately after lemon water, you are literally brushing away enamel. Plain, warm water is neutral. It is safe for teeth. It respects the oral microbiome.
That is a valid point on dental health. Acidic additives are a pervasive problem. But I want to circle back to the detox concept one last time before we close. You use the phrase mechanical cleansing. I want to be very clear for our listeners. Water supports the kidneys. It helps them filter blood. But the water itself doesn't grab toxins and pull them out because of its heat.
I would frame it differently. It's not that the heat grabs the toxin like a magnet. It's that the heat ensures the channels of the body. The srotas in Ayurveda, or the capillaries and vessels in Western medicine, are open and dilated, allowing for optimal flow. You can't filter what doesn't reach the filter. Vasodilation improves flow. Improved flow improves filtration.
That is a sophisticated argument for what is essentially minor vasodilation. A healthy cardiovascular system pumps blood to the kidneys just fine at 37 degrees Celsius without a warm beverage jumpstart. But I will admit, the placebo effect of a ritual is powerful. If believing the water is cleansing you makes you commit to the habit of hydration, the net result is positive, even if the biological mechanism is misunderstood.
It's not just placebo if the outcome is real. If the patient feels better, digestion improves, and congestion clears, the intervention is successful.
We might have to agree to disagree on the lie, even if we agree on the what.
Let's move to our conclusions then. I stand by the position that warm water is a premium experience for the body. While hydration is the baseline, warm water respects the body's internal environment. It aids the movement of the gut, specifically for those with motility issues like achalasia or even just general constipation. It is the superior choice for anyone dealing with respiratory congestion. And frankly, the ritual of Ushapana, waking up, drinking warm water, and sensing the body, is a mental health benefit that cold water, with its shocking nature, simply cannot provide.
And I conclude that the necessity of warmth is largely a myth constructed around simple biology. The body is a master of thermoregulation. It turns cold water into warm water within minutes. Cold water may actually have a slight metabolic edge regarding calorie burn, though minimal, and it avoids the potential risks of thermal injury to the esophagus. The danger lies in the pseudoscience of melting fat. If you like warm water, drink it, but do it because you enjoy it, not because you think it's a magical solvent for adipose tissue.
This discussion has certainly illuminated the gap between clinical necessity and therapeutic comfort.
Absolutely. And it reveals that sometimes the simplest things, like drinking water, are the ones we overcomplicate the most.
We encourage you to look at the source material, specifically the studies on esophageal motility and the Ayurvedic texts on daily regimens. Experiment with the temperature yourself. See if your digestion or mood shifts.
But remain skeptical of miracles. Drink the water you will actually drink.
Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.